welcome to everybody. Thank you for joining this Asia Talent Mobility Alliance webinar update on all things Japan today. This is actually the last in a series of updates that we have been doing about various countries across Asia. So thank you all for joining us today and for joining our webinar series. William, would you mind moving us to the first slide? Thank you very much. So here is our agenda today. I am pleased to welcome Tomoko Kajiyama from Caterpillar in Akashi in Kobe, Japan. So thank you, Tomoko-san, for joining us today. Kana Kumoshita from N+ in Tokyo. So Kana, thank you for joining.
Hi, thank you.
And my colleague William Titus at Relo Japan in Tokyo. William, thanks for joining today.
Thank you, sir.
And we will be running through the topics that you can see on the left hand of your screen right now. So immigration, housing, education, cost of living, and a look at the global mobility landscape in Japan. But before we do that, I'd just like to briefly explain a little bit about Asia Talent Mobility Alliance and a little bit about us. So some of you may well know, some of you may not know, that about 40% of the movement of people into and out of Asia, about 40% of the movement of people in our industry is into and out of Asia. So despite this, we have never really had any sort of organization that represents us here in Asia. And so that is what ATMA has been set up to do, is to represent our industry and the 40% of the entire sort of, global mobility population that is coming in and out of our regions, with the mission and the vision that you can see on your screen here. I'm not going to read through all of it, but we're very much looking to enhance the innovation and development of talent mobility in Asia. So that's our vision. That's what we want to do. The next slide just gives you a brief sort of idea of the people that are behind the launch of ATMA, or Asia Talent Mobility Alliance. So these wonderful folk here have been working with myself for about two and a half years now to get ATMA up and running. And we're very proud to announce that we are officially now a membership organization. We're accepting memberships. And we have our first official ATMA event in Singapore on Wednesday, the 6th of September from 7 p.m. So if you're interested in joining that, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'd be happy to extend an invitation to anybody in the industry to come along. And it's free for all to attend. So pretty much would love to see you there. The next slide, William, I think just goes back to the mission and to the vision. So I'll give people a little bit more time to read about that. But really, we're here to represent everybody in the industry. So everybody from corporate companies, service providers, and all aspects of the global mobility industry. So we really want to be here for everybody, and have ATMA being an Asia-based trade industry for Asia, all about Asia. So thank you very much. And this is just one of the things that we're doing at ATMA with these updates here today. So without further ado, we're now going to move ahead with our update on Japan. And we're going to start with an immigration update from William. Over to you, William.
Thank you, Steve. Start with everyone's favorite topic, immigration, because that's where the whole process starts. And it's like taxes, it's kind of an unavoidable process for those in the world of mobility. I have five different topics that I'm going to touch on very, very briefly. Screening times, a couple of new systems that have been launched recently, the types of inquiries that we're getting due to a changing financial environment, what types of applications we're seeing, and technology. So screening times, this is by far, other than can you help me, how long does it take is by far the most common question that we get in the immigration world. And I'm happy for those who come from smaller companies and who are moving as individuals. I'm happy to announce the screening times are getting shorter for some. They're flattening out. Whereas in the past, you had 4 categories of entity, category 1 being a large listed Japanese company and category 4 being a startup. While there's still some variation, we're starting to see the screening times come closer and closer to a month for everybody. So a month is a good sort of rule of thumb. Category 1 companies, large Japanese companies, used to get approved in a week or so for inbound applications. We call them certificate of eligibility, COE applications. Now they're taking the same as category 2, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Not a lot of extra speed in the process for the big players. Next point, we've got some new systems. It's a bit of a misnomer because especially the foreign press in Japan introduced these as new visas. They are not new visas. They are modifications of existing visas. We have 2 that started in April. Nobody actually knows exactly when in April they started. It certainly wasn't April 1st, but somewhere in April, we were given JSkip and JFind. I thought they were new boy bands. In fact, they are new systems that enable new kinds of people, different kinds of people like students and high-earning individuals to enter Japan, when in the past they might have had some challenges. To break it down pretty simply for you, JSkip is the visa that those making a great deal of money on a monthly basis would be going for. It's not a new visa, though. Again, it's a system. So JSkip, you can apply for that if you're making the equivalent of 20 million in annual salary per year, 20 million Japanese yen. And you have one of the 2 qualifications of a master's degree or 10 years work experience in your field. And the status you get, it's highly skilled professional. So this is a new kind of highly skilled professional. It's not a new visa. And then JFind is the more interesting one because it opens things up to college grads, university graduates, which was one of the types of candidates that always struggled to find enough time to get visa authorization in Japan. JFind requires, well, the big hurdle is it requires that you have a diploma from one of the 4-year global universities that are in the top 100 worldwide. So Ivy League, major national universities from around the world. In Japan, there's only 2, I believe, which is Tokyo University and Kyoto University. So you qualify for one of those universities. You have to graduate from one of those top 100. You need to apply for the JFind program within 5 years of graduation, or submit a startup business plan within 5 years from the point that you're kickstarting the process. You have to prove that you have 200,000 yen in monthly income so that you can support yourself at first. And the status that you get is an existing visa. It's called designated activities or Tokute Katsudo. Designated activities is kind of a wild and crazy visa category because there are 52 different types of permits within designated activities. Number 51 is JFind, and number 52 is spouse of a JFind holder. Very convenient. Just in case you're wondering, number 50 is ski instructor. So quite a wide range of permits you can get through that category. Third point very quickly now is, as I'm sure you can imagine, the yen is weak, as weak as I've ever seen it in my time here, my tenure here in Japan. Means we're getting a lot of startup inquiries. Startups are easier. If you're looking to get a business manager visa, business manager status through a new company, that 5 million yen that you need to have as a capital investment, that's a lot less money in US dollars, euro, and pound sterling than it used to be. So a lot more startups. An increase in non-traditional applications. They're not going to admit it. It's not on the front page of the paper, but the Japanese immigration authorities are opening up to non-traditional applications. people bringing over their parents and relatives who they need to support, people bringing over same gender partners, common law partners. These are all now within the realm of possibility. Not 100% guarantee because it's off the record, but possible. And the last point is a technology update. Yeah, there was a lot of buzz about electronic COE copies. Here's the problem. It only comes to one person in an email. So if that goes into the spam box, that's the end of the story, end of the process. We think it's a little risky until they develop that technology a little bit a little bit further. So we're still recommending that people send paper copies of the COE once it's issued, followed by the original. But a paper copy should be accepted in a lot of cases. Now, with all of that said, I'm going to turn things over to my colleague, my associate, Kana from N+.
William, if I could just jump in there, I'm sorry. I know that
sure, jump away.
Tomoko-san also had some visa some challenges that you wanted to talk about.
Oh, right. How could I forget? Let me
do you want
rewind.
to share some of the challenges you've been having at Caterpillar with not necessarily so much Japan, perhaps, but some challenges you've been having recently?
Yeah. Thank you for referring to our business. Because our company is Caterpillar is manufacturer and selling like construction machines and mining machine, and many machines are actually working in a construction site or mining sites, and we do have like after sales engineers and sales engineers coming from overseas to see the customers and do some like after services in the site. For these cases in the past, immigration is a bit not very clear, but these days, I think immigration regulation is very clearly stated, like we need a working visa, not really business trip. This is not considered as a business trip because our service engineers service fee is charged to our dealer or customer. So as long as the service are billable, actually we need to apply short-term, a kind of short-term work permit. So this really prevent or slow down our business. So, and also Japan is not really, the regulation is not meeting this kind of business. So we really cannot find exact visa category fits our business. This is the challenge we are facing at this moment.
Yes, and I'm hearing this in a lot of countries as well as we come out of COVID, that countries have tightened up a lot of their regulations and things for people getting into countries. And this is just one example in Japan of some struggles that a lot of companies are having. Okay, I think we're going over to Kana now to update us on some housing in Japan.
Certainly are.
Sure.
Take it away.
Let me start from the temporary housing. I'm going to cover the temporary housing market and also the long-term housing market today. So first of all, about the current market, there have been no major changes in corporate housing operators for high-end properties, such as global brands. However, corporate housing for middle-class business travelers, a total of 1,000 rooms disappeared from the market during the pandemic, as some operators closed their businesses during the pandemic. So we Empress took over one property in Shinagawa, which is this room, has like about 100 rooms, but still 900 rooms are gone. Meanwhile, business travels are back. So now we are facing the shortage, apartments such as 2 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms. With the impact of the weak Japanese yen, as well as the increase in hotel prices, exacting serviced apartments providers have raised rent, including us, and widening the gap between the corporate business travel budgets. So about the price, let me go further. It's been about half a year since the Japan border opened, and the occupancy rate of the hotel has increased, and the prices goes almost doubled over this summer, actually. Since hotels can't sell all rooms due to the shortage of manpower, some hotels strategically broke some volumes of the rooms and in order to save manpower to clean or serve the customers. Among service apartments, all providers increased the price from 10 to 15% starting in this spring. The dynamic pricing concept of hotel seems to apply to service apartment industries lately. We feel that. And current challenges, especially on legal requirement, Japan is a little bit unique country, so let me cover this. Real estate law in Japan strictly requires a 30-day minimum stay. This is a very strict policy for the corporate housing industry. Unless the property is registered under the hotel, with registration of usage of residence, you can't sell rooms on daily or weekly basis. There is a special license that can be applied for residents to be able to sell daily, but many rooms without this license are listed on kind of booking platforms, and this could cause some kind of compliance risks to the corporate travelers. Unlike hotels, where you may change rooms easily, real estate law here requires a 1 month minimum stay, and the vacant room cannot be resold when the contract is still in place. So in case that your guest wants to change the unit to another after move-in within 1 month, he or she have to wait for a month to complete the 1 month minimum requirement to avoid a duplicate cost. This uniqueness in Japanese real estate law sometimes can be the challenge for global companies and also the global housing agencies. And we sometimes feel so sorry for them, but this law is law, so you have to obey. So we really hope you are understanding about this. So now let me go to long-term apartment. The next slide, please. Thank you. Market. Current market and options for expats. During the pandemic, there was no new supply of high-end expat housing. And while Japan closed its border, the existing properties are listed to the Japanese market, and the portfolio of residents has been changed. The organization in the property management companies also changed during the pandemic, and some of the properties changed their leasing conditions to locally, such as asking for key money, which is non-refundable deposit, called reikin. It's very old style leasing habit in Japan. Due to the shortage of expat housing, some of the properties have a lottery to choose the applicant over few applications at the same time. Those are big challenges for expats as well. However, there is some good news as well. Its latest development is coming up called the Turanomon Azabudai project, which can be considered as new Roppongi Hills, a complex with serviced apartments, long-term apartments, hotel, shop, restaurant, and even international schools will be there. This will be a good news for the new coming expats for the end of this year or the next year. So trends after the pandemic. Other than expats, the criteria for local hires or younger assignees indicate the demand for having working space at home. Before the pandemic, there was a strong demand for living closer to their office, even in a studio, like a smaller space. But now they are willing to commute longer, but have more space, like 1 bedroom or 2 bedroom apartment, even for the single use. Rent tends to increase. The monthly rents tends to increase, and the market is still active and very strong. Lastly, current challenges for non-Japanese assignees. For the expats, the biggest challenge is the shortage of stocks in the market still, and local laws tends to apply to the expat housing as well. For non-expats, especially younger assignees or local hires, who are required to sign the individual contract instead of the corporate contract. The biggest issue here will be the shortage of properties that accept non-Japanese residents or non-Japanese speakers. To go through the resident screening, mostly you will be required to use the guarantor support services at the cost. And the guarantor support service will require you to provide an emergency contact which with his or her personal address and information. And the emergency contact has to be Japanese or the non-Japanese with the permanent resident. So HRs, of course, want to feel comfortable to provide their personal information, and it sometimes causes a big problem to fail from the tenant screening. unfortunately, there are still some barriers for non-Japanese people to rent the apartment in Tokyo, in Japan. So we emphasize providing various housing solutions to meet different sorts of demands. For the individual contract, we are trying to making a structure to leasing the apartment from Empress as a lessor, assignee as a lessee, to avoid any barrier in between to as an alternative solution. With this strict structure, we could reach over 12,000 nice apartments in central Tokyo. So hope this kind of updates help you to have more clear idea how we are right now and how is the Tokyo market right now. Well, let me turn over it to William-san.
Thank you, Kana-san. And I think this is an easy one to segue into education updates, international schools, because it pretty closely mirrors what we're seeing in the housing market, which is very little available space. The schools, especially the mainstream schools like the American school, the British school, the German school, Tokyo International School, which is International Baccalaureate, they don't have a lot of space. There are a lot of reasons for that. It's Tokyo. They didn't have a lot of physical space to begin with. And a lot of schools had to move out into the suburbs to get more space. There is no real debenture system, although some schools have a corporate contribution system. There's no guarantee for the children of corporate assignees. And so everyone has to go through a competitive, basically like we were talking about with the long-term apartments, a competitive bidding process. So you don't really know what the outcome is going to be. You can't get into the American school just because you're American. Families, the second point here, because they have to live near the schools, wherever the schools may be, and we do have plenty of schools, plenty of areas, but because they're on a lot of school bus routes, and families overseas who have young children aren't so comfortable having them on the metro right off the bat, they need to live by the schools. And if that's an expensive neighborhood, they need to have higher housing budgets to be able to accommodate. So less space in the schools, it's driving up the budgets as well. The school is definitely something. I mentioned earlier that immigration is unavoidable. Schooling is also compulsory, I believe. So that's a needed cost, a mandatory cost for a lot of the companies that we work with. I'm not personally aware of any schools that are adding bus routes. There may be a few with a shuttle or something like that they add, but buses are hard to come by. And the last point is, because of all of these challenges, some schools are moving to new locations, moving to the suburbs. Some are moving to more central locations so that it can be closer to the families in that area. And some are consolidating. For example, the British school, Kana-san mentioned there'd be international schools moving into the Toranomon Azabudai urban renewal project in the center of town. The British school, I believe, is the big one there that's going to be consolidating their reception and part of primary and secondary all into the same facility in the center of town instead of being at two separate locations. So I guess that last one is more of a positive note. And without further ado, I'd like to pass the mic over to my colleague Steve in Singapore for a cost of living update.
Thank you, William. So we'll keep this reasonably simple. As you can see in the diagram on your screen there, Japan's ranking in terms of being most expensive or quite expensive has been falling quite significantly in 2023. However, as you can see from the bullet points here, most of that has to do with the very weak Japanese yen in relation to the other major currencies around the world. So because of that, Japan is looking like it's a much cheaper location to be in. But if you are actually here in Japan, well, I'm in Singapore today, but I was in Japan a couple of weeks ago. If you are in Japan, you're definitely feeling that prices, have been rising. So, in absolute terms, prices are rising in Japan quite significantly. You heard about the rents rising. The cost of living is definitely going up. The cost of fuel, for example, gasoline, is incredibly high. I think it's reached its record in Japan just recently. I saw on the news. And definitely food prices are a lot more expensive now than they were in 2022. So if you're in Japan, you're feeling the bite of increased prices. If you're outside of Japan, you're probably looking at Japan and going, that's quite a cost-worthy nation to travel to now. So I think that's the main story when it comes to cost of living in Japan. And now I will turn things back to Tomoko-san, who's going to give us a little bit of an update on things in the global mobility landscape. So over to you, Tomoko-san. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Talking about Caterpillar business in Japan, during a pandemic era, we see a drastic decrease of expats populations. And now we started to recover in 2022, but I think this time still remains about 65% of pre-pandemic era. And this trend, I believe, continue for a while. I do not see a drastic increase in near future. Okay. And I know from other companies, global company, core and flex programs are getting more popular and try to give more flexibility to the employees. From Caterpillar, our business is relatively conservative, and our policy is still very conservative, but we are still studying this core and flex program this year, and in near future, we are going to introduce this program. We are still doing lots of benchmarking and studying with other global company and buying data from market research company. Okay, and the recent challenges we are facing is not specific to Japan, but this is going to be in a global issue. More and more countries towards like protectionism to their own employee. So then immigration and tax regulation is getting severer, or government pay more attention. So while we are receiving more and more requests from like remote workers who want to work somewhere, like say Taiwan, Philippines, where Caterpillar do not have offices, right? And we have to keep payrolling from home countries. Then we have to figure out the compliance way to pay social securities, income tax, and light immigrations, right? So these are getting more challenging at this moment compared to its very, how do you say, traditional expatriate program. So we are spending lots of time to investigate to find out the solution for most compliant approach. And lastly, the challenges we face with our employees and overseas HR is a decrease of COLA, which is cost of living allowance. As just Stephen explained, if you see from overseas, Japan is getting less expensive, right? But if you are living in Japan, you feel like food pricing, fuel prices are going up. If you compare with like US and Australia and Singapore, inflation rate is still lower than other countries. So when we calculate cost of living allowance, we just have to factor many things. For example, exchange rate of host and home countries, and spendable income between home and host countries, right? And all the price each item, like we have a basket of items to compare, and all these exchange rate, we have to just combine all the data and then determine how much we pay for cost of living to compensate our assignees to fill the gap of spendable income in home and host countries. Now, because of this situation, cost of living is actually decreasing. This is nothing we can do because of this weakening yen and the price difference between Japan and other countries. But people's in mindset, Japan is still very expensive. Why you are decreasing my allowance? So I think we just need to spend quite some time to explain how we determine our allowances. And this is consistent approaching globally and most objective. So this is a challenge we face.
See, that would be a challenge, telling people that their allowances have to go down even though prices are going way up.
And their mindset, it still think Japan is expensive, right?
And it is expensive.
I know, but you see, if you are receiving a salary in US dollars, because it actually value is much higher if you convert into yen, right? So, which means your spendable income in Japan is already up. Right? So it's hard to explain. Even I think some people don't understand what I'm talking about. This is a challenge from like a total rewards standpoint.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you everybody for all of your insights today. I would like to reach out to the audience now to see if there are any questions that they might have for our elite panelists here. I'm sure they would be happy to answer any questions if you want to put them into the chat box now, or into the Q&A box. And just while you're perhaps tapping out some questions there, our membership for ATMA has opened, as you can see, on August the 1st. So today being September the 1st, we've been going a whole month now. It would be great to have some more people on board. In wanting to be very inclusive in what we do at ATMA, as I mentioned, this is a trade industry that we are creating, for Asia, for all people in the industry. So we do want to be very inclusive, and part of being inclusive, we have tried very hard to keep our annual fees as low as possible. So you can see there, the first member, if you join as a company, your first member would be $300 per year. And every other member from your second member onwards would be $200 per annum. So we're keeping the fees very reasonable, so that everybody in every location in Asia is able to hopefully join us. You are also welcome to join as an individual or a company member. So we're not discriminating between the two. So you can join as on behalf of your company, or you can join just on behalf of yourself if you wish. So very much would love to have more and more members on board, and it is an organization that's going to be led by the members, so there will be leadership opportunities. There'll be opportunities for you to get involved in things, to build things within ATMA, and so we're really looking forward to everybody joining us. And probably we will have some chapters or committees that are country based as well. So there may well be a Japan chapter or committee. We haven't quite figured out what we might call these groupings, but we can also very much have other groupings as well. So there might be a moving company grouping, for example. So we could go across some of the different compartments of the industry and that sort of thing as well. So really would love to have you join us here at ATMA. Okay, it doesn't look like we've had any questions come in, ladies and gentlemen. So I think at this point, we're going to bring an end to this update today. Thank you very much to Tomoko-san, to Kana-san, to William.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. And I look forward to the next update and to speaking with everybody again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.